Greetings student, welcome to the class. Today we are going to start a new topic that is from chapter 5 Fundamental Units of Life in page number 70 of NCERT textbook called as the section of a stem. In this we are going to study about the section of a stem and what are the various parts. Students, you must be very curious as how would a stem look like from inside. So this is a real view of a section of a stem under the microscope. You can see here a scale is also given which says 0.5 millimeters. So that means this section will be a little more than 1 centimeter in diameter. This is the real section. And if we try to draw it with using a pen and paper, then we will have to draw it like this. Now here you can see that the first layer is called as the epidermis, then below it hypodermis, then the cortex, then endodermis, then pericycle, then comes phloem, then cambium, and then comes the xylem. Now the first layer is the epidermis. Epidermis comprises of the parenchyma cells which are rectangular in shape, which are very tightly packed, and this is of single layer. Then comes the hypodermis. The hypodermis comprises of the collenchyma cells, and this hypodermis, it is of few layers in thickness, and below the hypodermis is the cortex. The cortex comprises of many layers and it has parenchyma cells with thin wall around them. Below the cortex, we can see a single layered endodermis. This endodermis is very special because it is composed of a very water impermeable deposit around it called suberin. And this is also called as the Casparian strip. Below the endodermis is the pericycle. The pericycle, if you look very carefully, there we can see the cells are made up of very thick walled cell wall. Now, why this is drawn like this? Because the pericycle comprises of sclerenchyma cells, that are the dead cells. Below the pericycle, we can see it is written as phloem. Now, the phloems are responsible for transport of food from the leaf to the growing parts of the plant. Below the phloem, we can see a layer called as the cambium. The cambiums are nothing but the meristematic tissues, and in every rainy season or every spring season onwards, this cambium will become very functional and it will produce new xylem and phloems. Below the cambium comes the xylem. The xylem is responsible for transporting water to the plant. And around it, we can see, around this xylem, phloem, and pericycle, we can see there are medullary rays. Now, in the center of these stem, there are large parenchyma cells with thin cell walls. Now, these parenchyma cells, they also enter in between the two bundles of the vascular bundles, and that is called as the medullary rays. I hope you can compare both the hand-drawn structure as well as the real structure which we can see under the microscope. If you want to see it a little more clearly and try to understand this section, I have another diagram which will give you a better view. Now, see in this section, the epidermis is marked, the single layered epidermis, below which is the cortex is marked, and of course they have not marked the hypodermis. There is a layer of hypodermis as well. Then below the cortex will come the endodermis, and below that comes the pericycle. We can see pericycle in dark blue color here, and below the pericycle comes the phloem. The phloem is very clearly marked in the diagram, and then we can see the cambium which is present below the phloem. And below the cambium, the xylem is well marked, and we can see the pith. The pith is the center portion of the plant stem, and it is comprising of the parenchyma cells and very thin cell wall. Students, if you want to refer to this diagram for future, so you can even take a screenshot. Now this is the diagram which is given in your textbook in page number 70, and I hope you can very well relate to these diagrams now. Now over the epidermis there is a layer of cuticle, and the stem hairs are present, which are called as the trichomes. And below that, below the epidermis, all the other layers, as we have already studied, hypodermis, cortex, endodermis, pericycle, phloem, cambium, and xylem, pith, everything is present. And when you draw it, you always have to draw it in this manner. So students, we come to an end to this session. Thank you very much.